Of course, we all came from nowhere and we're now here. Human life began for you as one single cell called a zygote. One single cell created by the fusion of one drop of protoplasm and an egg, which contains all the DNA, everything, the whole code that develops you into the complex organism that you are and are becoming as you journey through this thing called life. The single cell is where it all started. And it started to divide rapidly. And billions and billions of cells and tissues marked the very start of life, where you were born into a womb. So you were not Ray here, you were coming here. You were locked away for 10 months, uh, becoming somebody. And then, of course, we're born and we start surviving. We start the journey of life, developing physically, psychologically, emotionally, socially, and spiritually. And it ain't easy. It's a journey through everything imaginable. There's no limits to who you can become, what can happen. And that's quite the story. We start off surviving until we get to about 2 years old, and your life focuses on developing trust and attachment and learning the signals needed for survival. Of course, all relationships are built on trust, so that's where it started for all of us. We have to then not only physically grow, but develop psychologically and then develop an emotional mind or the limbic brain, which helps us learn to first obey the rules, feel certainty and security, feel love, and we learn how to fit in. Of course, at around 8 years old, we develop the rational mind, which we find out one day is not that rational, but that's the neocortex. And we develop a unique identity somewhere around 8 to 18, more or less. And that unique identity again is becoming one again. It's shifting away from the codependent nature of your relationship with your parents and family. And you become an individual again, a unique identity. And you shift from dependency to independence and create your own values, your own moral codes, thoughts, perceptions, and ideas of the world. And you start to live more authentically and shed some of the defenses as well as the masks that you once had to wear for someone else's security and certainty. But of course, life is not just a physical or emotional journey. Aside from becoming an individual again, we all have a hunger for authenticity. And that hunger or that desire to grow and become your authentic self, highest possible self, drives our explorations into work and relationships, how we pray and play. And we've got to remember that that drive and hunger for authenticity is directly connected to your well-being, to your state of mental health, your vitality, your psychological well-being, self-esteem, your coping skills, the way you can do things and solve problems with the CEO of the brain, the prefrontal cortex. So there's a kind of self-determination here that is driving us to become somebody and somebody real. So as these individuals, we create our own thoughts from how we perceive the world, other people, how we understand God and our purpose on this planet. There's a chain reaction where a thought eventually becomes a habit, and that habit then becomes an identity, an attitude, and a belief. And we believe a story of who we are. And that story is the development of your personality. Every day you create habits with 86,000 thoughts. And those habits become attitudes, subconscious programs that help us navigate life with the greatest of ease, as your mind wants to do. It's not interested in laboring, it's interested in learning and developing ways that you can navigate the world with ease. And that's why our desire for money and fame and fortune is so rife, because we think it's going to lead us to a life of comfort and ease, which we desire. So these habits that are strung together over time become stories and a personal identity again, a subconscious state of being, really, which is who we call ourselves for a while. We've become this person or persona, and that persona has become our personal reality. But again, just like all the other stages of life, we don't arrive. We keep growing, keep becoming. And at some point in life, we get to confront our shadow as we embrace our authentic self a little bit more. You see, it's a journey. It's a spiraling upwards. And we've got to go back at some point and look at the repressed traits, the thoughts we've hidden, the truths that we've made into lies, which is part of life. It's there to protect you and keep you safe, and it works for a while. But it has nothing to do with becoming you or becoming the authentic self. So at some point, you've got to meet your shadow. You've got to confront all the unconscious and hidden, denied parts of yourself. And we try and escape that, but it just leads to more and more misery. The escaping causes more suffering than the process. So we confront the subconscious. And in doing so, we embark even further on the process of experiencing ourselves. Yeah. We thought we were the center of this total personality, the conscious and unconscious together. But we're far more than that, far more than a social mask. So, persona meaning mask. This is a kind of being born again, yet again, as we confront these repressed traits and our feminine and masculine sides, realize more of this self that we're becoming, which is the lifelong journey we call life. But it's a journey to authenticity, and most people are obliviously unaware that this process of adaptation and creation is actually happening, that they're meeting the shadow when they're suffering and when they feel stuck and depressed and anxious and confront traits they felt that were negative or unacceptable to themselves or the world. When they arise, freedom comes, peace comes, and psychological balance actually increases through suffering. Isn't that a paradox? It's just a journey of experiencing the real self more and more as we can bear more and more through this process of unconscious to conscious, of mask to unmasking. I mean, one day we all wake up and realize that there is an ego defense system operating. We realize that there is a mask, and then we realize that we've got to take it off. And when we do, we need to look in the mirror with these unmasked eyes and see ourselves as we really are. And that includes wholeness, not perfection. You got to remember that when we're ready, we need to integrate all aspects of ourselves, all those weaknesses and dark points, rather than the perfectionist mask, for example, that we wore that blinded us until we could bear to really see ourselves. It's a lifelong process, all of this. It's a continuous journey that requires serious courage to leave the certainty of who you thought you were, that comfort zone of, I know who I really am, which is never, never really true. There'll always be parts of you that you do not know of. And you can look at Johari's window to look at that. There are parts of us that we don't know about ourselves. So an identity crisis is inevitable. Existential crisis is something that's gonna happen because of this psychosocial development that we go through. An identity crisis is coming everybody's way. So there's going to be conflict. And through that conflict, self-awareness is born. To realize that we're always beginning again. Yeah, born into not the world, but the mother's womb. We're becoming a physical body. And that physical body then needs to be born. Yeah. When it's born, we need to develop a personality, an identity. And that's who we really think we are. But of course, life starts again, constantly. And we're born in yet again. We realize we're a soul. And we're not the thoughts, feelings, actions, behaviors, consequences, and memories and stories that we've put together. No, we start to wake up and recognize that we're separate from body and mind. Yet again, we split into two and we become mind, body, and soul. So we can see the distinct patterns of our thoughts are not really who we are. They're just simply a process of the body, heart, and mind. We detach at this point from ego-driven thoughts and embrace higher realities or truths. And in doing so, higher purpose. We start connecting deeply to ourselves, and love replaces all that fear that kept us safe. That voice in the head that everybody has, with its constant reminders and worries and social conditioning. Get yourself ready for this and that. Look good. All that self-judgment is let go of as we uncover our true selves yet again. So the shift in perspective is often called a spiritual awakening. It's not just about increased awareness or heightened sensitivity. It's about moving beyond body, heart, mind, thought, feeling, action. It's about moving beyond the veil of ignorance, seeing through societal illusions, social conditioning, which is the beginning of the death of the ego. It's the beginning of losing your personal identity that became your personal reality. And so this is how the truth sets us free. It liberates us from spiritual bondage or deception, ignorance, not being able to see with the flesh, as stated in John 8. So this new identity based more in truth breaks down mental strongholds, masks and personas and lies, fears, anxieties, all of these things that held us in a prison of personality. So again, we're leveling up. We're seeing that we're not our sin forever. We're not our character defects, our shadow self. We're not just fallen, broken, useless, mortal beings, but instead we're divine. So that's another awakening right there. Another becoming who you really are. This revisiting identity is something we're gonna never stop doing. It's an unfolding, like a flower opening, a flowering of consciousness. We're realizing and understanding the truth of who we are through all these stages, from baby to toddler to infant to adolescent to adult to elderly, are just the physical part of our identity. And psychologically speaking, we're not that social face. We're not the multiple masks we wear to survive and please and identify with. That's not who we really are. So, who are we then? Those three words, who am I, are here to keep you guessing. They'll never go away. And whenever there's a crisis, not just an identity crisis, you will question, who am I? It's never going to go away because it's driving you to really deeply answer the question that the world to date has battled to answer. Who am I? You cannot answer that question intellectually. You're far better off diving into your emotional intelligence, that unseen language, to answer that question. When you can deeply feel things like fear and love and everything in between, you can have a better sense of who you really are. However, you're even deeper than that. You're a soul, a spiritual being, and a sacred self. In fact, we all are. And if we all are, that means we're back down to one. Universe, one verse, one song. We're back to one no matter which direction we go in. And it's beautiful. How clever to solve the mystery of trillions and trillions of outcomes and experiences and get back to one. God said, I am that I am. And just think about that for a moment. I am that I am. So what God is saying to us when we asked him what his name is absolutely everything. nothing excluded. So I am that over there, and I am that across that way. I am that in the past, and that in the future. I am that person, and I am that person. Can you see? Uh, it's often too much for the mind or intellect to bear. And that's the point. I don't know if you've seen the size of the universe, just the number of suns and planets, galaxies. It's too immense for the mind to comprehend. And that's the point in the story. The point is you've got to go deeper than you think, then deeper than you feel, deeper than you act and behave, deeper than what you've become. There's no limit to the universe and there's no limit to the depth. We're truly unlimited, boundless, much like the universe. Ramana Maharshi said, your own self-realization is the greatest service you can render to the world. Awakening is not changing who you are. It's discarding the masks that kept you thinking you were someone you were not. The teacher in all of this is your own soul, and it's guiding you towards becoming you. You see, who am I one day? Who am I, which is based in fear and developing a personality that is designed to keep us from frightening things, becomes I am. And God said, I am. So who am I is a question. And of course, that question, unanswered, is based in fear. We don't know who we really are. But when we start to spiritually awaken and we start to listen to that teacher, which is your soul, and have a spiritual experience, we start to understand that I am love. I am God's chosen. I am divine, eternal. I am spiritual, immortal, loved. And this is the journey of life, becoming somebody and then becoming nobody. Because we really start to become who we really are when we realize that we're actually going nowhere and there's nowhere to go. You know, don't go out, go within. Carl Jung said, he who looks outside dreams, but he who looks inside awakens. So our task here is to become somebody, then nobody. Realize we are not the body. We are not the psychology. We're not the emotions. We're something far, far deeper. We're not human beings having a spiritual experience of any kind. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. We're experiencing this unfolding of reality, truth, self-actualization, and then God realization. It's a journey from fear to love, from 0 to 1 and 1 to 0. Am I is the question that guides us from one identity to another until one day we realize that we can switch it around, have a paradigm shift from am I this to I am that. And what you put after the words, after your journey of life, after your awakenings, revelations, the mystical understandings that you will undoubtedly go through. What you put after the words I am at the end of the day is who you will be. That's who you're becoming. That's who we're all becoming. And God said, I put before you life and death. Choose to become life. So I am love. Anything that is not love is built in fear, false evidence appearing real, real but not true. You see, only love is going to endure. And if I am anything other than love, that is not going to endure. And this is what I mean when I say, God wins, but only every time. God is love, and you are love. And those two are the same thing. That's the identity. That is who I really am. Fear and everything that it represents is an illusion. And A Course in Miracles puts it perfectly when they say perfect love casts out fear, meaning that fear is an illusion, while only God's love is real. By choosing, I put before you life and death, choose life. By choosing to accept this perfect, unconditional love, fear gets replaced. Guilt gets replaced. The frightened personality gets replaced with the soul. So the change in perception is the journey of life, from judgment to acceptance and forgiveness, from fear to love at the end of the day. When you invite love in, fear dissipates and disappears. It's just a distortion, an illusion, like the masks of personality you once wore. So you get to decide who you really are. I am. What words are going to finish that sentence for you are your choice. And that choice will echo through eternity as you've become that choice. And the power of choice, deep, deep, everlasting choice, is in your hands. So remember the words of Rumi. You are the soul of the universe, and your name is love.